Hi guys, welcome to another great day of teaching and learning. This is our final video for remote learning for the year. So it's really exciting to be able to wrap this year out with a very fun subject, myths and folklore. So I'm encouraging everyone, if you have not watched Miss Gowen's video from Monday, to go ahead and watch that now because that connects to what we're doing today. All right, let's get started. So, what is a myth? A myth is a story passed down from a culture that explains something supernatural, supernatural beings or events. So today we're going to read about a Native American myth um, about solar eclipses. So remember, a myth is a story that's not necessarily true, but that is passed down from a culture about why something could be true. All right, so earlier this week, you guys learned about solar eclipses. I just want to give you guys a refresher on what a solar eclipse is because we are going to read a myth from a Native American tribe about the first solar eclipse and what they think happened. So, a solar eclipse, first of all, the word solar means sun, and a solar eclipse is when the moon, which orbits the earth, gets in front of the sun's rays and blocks out the sun um, from a certain point on earth. So if I remember the last solar eclipse we had, it was in 2007. That was a pretty special one because it was during the middle of the day and the sun was out and the moon came out and blocked the sun completely. So even though it was daytime, it was completely dark outside for a good few minutes. And it was so crazy. And you had to have these special sunglasses because you can't look directly at the sun, and you definitely can't look at a solar eclipse because it's dangerous to your eyes. But basically, what a solar eclipse is when it's daytime, the sun is shining, and the moon comes and sits right in front and blocks all the light. Um, a good question is, can everyone in the world see the same solar eclipse? And the answer is no, because if you remember how the Earth rotates, um, right now it's daytime on this side of the Earth and it's nighttime over here. So no, a solar eclipse doesn't happen all over the world at the same time. Only certain places can see solar eclipse during certain times. But they're really rare and special, so we should appreciate them when we see them. Oh, sorry guys. All right, so the text we're going to be reading today is not in your packet. It's a text that we picked out, but it is called the Sun Snarer, and it is a Native American tribe called the Menominee. And if you're looking at this picture here, I'm looking at this text, and I'm seeing what looks like a young man or a man or a boy who is trying to capture the sun with a rope. And the end result was the first solar eclipse. So that's what the story we're going to read about. We're going to read about why this kid tries to capture the sun and he creates darkness during the daytime, which causes a solar eclipse. So here's some vocabulary from the sun snare that you may need to know. So one, if you look at my mouse right here, this is called a snare. A snare is a trap that you create to catch something. So the snare is the trap that you use to catch something, and this guy is called the snarer. He's the snarer. He's the one who is trying to snare. And in this story, it looks like, well, in this picture, they're not trying to snare the sun, but in the previous picture, that was a sun snarer who was trying to capture the sun. They did it by creating what is called a noose, and a noose is a long rope that in the circle, and when something steps in the circle, it retracts and captures the animal, or in our case, the sun. The next vocabulary word is a wigwam. A wigwam, what do you guys think it is, just by looking at the picture? You're absolutely right. It's a house. It's a Native American house. And the last word is a feeling, and that is called distress. So if I'm looking at this picture and I'm thinking of the word distress, what do you think that means? You are absolutely right. This dude is stressing out. He's very worried and upset and maybe feeling a little sad or crazed. He is distressed right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and read this fabulous myth called the Sun Snarer. Let me pull up my text here. Okay, the Sun Snarer, a Menominee legend, or myth, or folklore. All right, one day, while two elder brothers were out hunting in the forest, the youngest went away to hide himself and to mourn because he was not permitted to join them. He had with him his bow and arrows and his beaver skin robe. But when the sun rose high in the sky, he became tired and laid himself down to weep, covering himself entirely with his robe to keep out the sun. While the sun was directly overhead and saw the boy, it sent down a ray which burned spots upon the robe and made it shrink until it exposed the boy. Then the sun smiled while the boy wept more violently before. Okay, so just to do a quick summary of the story, a trio, three brothers, went out hunting in the forest, and the youngest wasn't allowed to come. The youngest brother, he wasn't allowed to come. So he lays down and he gets really upset and sad, and he covers himself with a robe made out of beaver skin. And the sun saw him, and it sent down a ray, so a beam of light, to make him happy. But what happened was it burned the boy's robe, and the boy got very distressed, and he was very, very upset and sad. He felt that he had been cruelly treated by both his brothers and now by the sun. He said to the sun, "You have treated me cruelly and burned my robe when I did not deserve it. Why did you punish me like this?" The sun merely continued to smile, but said nothing. Then the boy gathered his bow and arrows, and taking his burnt robe, and returned to the wigwam, where he lay down in a corner and again wept. His sister was outside of the wigwam when he returned, so she was not aware of his presence when she re-entered to attend to her work. Presently she heard someone crying, and going over to the place whence the sound came from, she found that it was her youngest brother who was in distress. So I'm going to summarize this paragraph. The boy comes home, and he goes and lays down, and he's feeling sad. His sister comes into the house and hears him. She said to him, "My brother, why are you weeping?" To which he replied, "Look at me. I am sad because the sun burned my beaver skin robe. I have been cruelly treated this day." Then he turned his face away and continued to weep. Even in his sleep he sobbed because of his distress. When he awoke, he said to his sister, "My sister, give me a thread. I wish to use it." A thread is a piece of string. She handed him a sinew thread, but he said to her, No, that's not what I want. I want a hair thread. She understood his meaning, and plucking a single hair from her person, so she plucked a hair from her head, she handed it to him when he said, "This is what I want." And taking it at both ends, he began to pull gently, smoothing it out as it continued to lengthen from the tips of the fingers of one hand to the ends of the fingers of another. When he started out to where the sun's path touched the earth, when he reached the place where the sun was and when it burned his robe, the little boy made a noose and caught him around the neck and began to choke him until it's almost lost its breath. So the boy was angry at the sun. The sister gave him some hair from her head, and he made a noose, a trap to capture the sun, and he ropes it around his neck, and it began to choke him. It became dark, and the sun called out to the Manitos, "Help me, my brothers, and cut this string before it kills me." The Manitos came, but the thread had so cut into the flesh of the sun's neck that they could not sever it. When all but one had given up, the sun called to the mouse to try to cut the string. The mouse came in and gnawed at the string, but it was difficult to work because the string was hot and deeply embedded in the sun's neck. After working at the string a good while, however, the mouse succeeded in cutting it. When the sun breathed again and darkness disappeared, if the mouse had not succeeded, the sun would have died. Then the boy said to the sun, "For your cruelty I have punished you. Now you may go." Then the boy returned to his sister, satisfied for what he had done. So basically, if I'm going to summarize this story, I would say this young man was upset that his brothers wouldn't go hunting with him. So he lay down on the ground and the sun burnt his beaver skin coat. He was very distressed and went home to his wigwam and laid down, and his sister saw him was upset and saw that he was upset, and she gave him some thread from her hair. He used the thread to create a noose to tie around the sun's neck to punish him and kill him. But thankfully, the Manitos and the mouse came and set the sun free, and there was no more darkness, and the boy felt that he had got his revenge on the sun. Now, since you have heard two different stories about solar eclipses and how they started, I want you guys to try to compare and contrast. That's our skill for today. So when you compare and contrast, you're talking about how things are the same and how things are different. So to compare in Spanish is el mismo, how are things the same, and to contrast is el diferente. So a lot of you guys have seen this before. This is what's called a double bubble map. And we use a double bubble map to see how things are the same and how they are different. So we compare and we contrast. So if you were a great student and you watched Miss Goen's videos, then you can take her story and our story, the sun snarer, and you can compare and contrast them. You can tell me how things were the same and how they were different. Make sure you send me a picture of you comparing and contrasting and the similarities and the differences between Miss Goen's sun myth and Miss Morrow's sun myth. Bye guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great day.